Hello, hello. This is Lisa, Salty Sunshine Book Club edition. Today I'm going to review the book, The Boyfriend by Freida McFadden. This is one of the books, I read a lot of books in between our book club pick. Right now our book club pick is The Wedding People by Alison Esbach. And so I just finished reading The Boyfriend. So I'm going to go ahead and review it for y'all. Freida McFadden books I love. This one was no different. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I think I read it in like 2.5 days. When you read a book quick, it means it's really good because you want to keep reading because you're engaged. So the book starts off with a girl named Sydney. She's pushing her mid-30s and she lives in New York. And, she's like a lot of women that she's nervous that she can't find a decent partner, let alone a husband to have babies with. So her mom's on her butt. When are you going to have babies? When are you going to meet someone? Blah, blah, blah. She did have a live-in boyfriend. His name was Jake. He was a police officer, but apparently he didn't give her enough time. And he put work before their relationship, and it made them break up. So now she's single. She's going on a date. So the book opens up that she's on this date and from a dating app. His name is Kevin. And when he gets to the restaurant, he looks nothing like his photo. And he's a complete fraud. Like he catfished her. So she's like, oh, Jesus. So they sit down to eat and she doesn't even want to be there. And she's like, let me just make it through. Her friend Gretchen's supposed to give her an emergency call so she can get out of the date. And she never did because she was with her boyfriend Randy, which is the work handyman guy at the building they live in. So anyways, she gets to the dinner. The guy has a horrible, she's like, how bad could it be, right? Unless his personality is terrible, like let's see if the guy's nice or whatever. He wasn't. He was a complete idiot. And so she can't wait to get out of there. And at the end, to top it all off, he makes her pay half the bill. And she's just like, Jesus. So when they get out of the restaurant, he insists on walking her home. And she's like, I don't want him to walk me home. And I'm not going to let him know where I live. So Sydney's personality for me as a person, it annoys me. Doesn't mean I don't like the character. The character's great. It's just when women don't stand up for themselves and kind of, obviously you have to do that for the story too, because then, it won't progress. But it drives me crazy as a reader to read her, she could have just told him to F off. I said no, but that's not how it goes. So she allows him to walk her like halfway and she pretends she lives in a building that's not hers. And when she tries to leave, he gets aggressive with her and he wants to give her a kiss and all this stuff. And he's like the most annoying guy. So it gets physical and I think she knees him or kicks him in the groin. And then with that, she hits her head somehow. And this guy comes out of nowhere and like helps her. And he's like, what's going on here? And so he's like, I'm going to call the cops. You better leave. So he finally gets rid of the guy. And when she looks at the guy that helped her, he's like really cute. So she calls him like hot mystery man. And he doesn't ask for her phone number or anything. He leaves. So when she gets back to her building, her friend Bonnie also lives in the building. So she has 2 friends. One's Gretchen, one's Bonnie. They do yoga. They go get coffee. So she tells Bonnie, oh my God, I had the worst date, blah, blah, blah. She's bleeding from her head because she hit her head. And she's like, no wonder he didn't ask me for my number. I'm like bleeding. I look gross. And so Bonnie said, oh, she just left her boyfriend, hot mystery doctor man. So Bonnie has this boyfriend that's a doctor and she's super into him and she thinks they're going to get serious. And it's been a little bit. And he just left her house. So later on in the story, you'll see that when she thinks about it, Sydney, she's like, was that doctor that Bonnie was with the same guy that helped me out? And she goes against her better judgment and writes it off as a stupid thought. But so Bonnie, she tells Bonnie about the bad date, blah, blah, blah. She goes home. So fast forward, Kevin, the guy, the bad date, he starts to stalk her. And he's, trying to email her or find her. She reports him on the app, but she doesn't even know if that's his real name. She doesn't know his last name. She doesn't know anything about him, so she can't really call the cops, which I still would have called the cops just to have it on record. But she was annoying in that sense, like she really didn't do what had to be done. And so she's an accountant. And he stalks her so much that even at one point he makes a Zoom call with her acting as a client, and it's really him just trying to get her attention. She bumps into him on the street one day. She's coming back from yoga. She's with Bonnie, and Bonnie tells him off. And she's like, you're a creep, blah, blah, blah. So One day, Bonnie needs her toilet fixed. So their friend Gretchen, her boyfriend, his name is Randy, and he's the super in the building. So he fixes everything, and she asked him to come look at the toilet. And he said, sure, I'll come by tomorrow morning at 9. And Bonnie then tells Sydney, please come to my apartment, because they live in the same building. She's like, please come 15 minutes before he gets there, because I think he's creepy. And she's like, what do you mean? He's nice, and he's your friend's boyfriend. And she's like, I don't care. I find there's something about him that he looks at me weird. So Sydney says, sure. I think he's nice and everything, but there is something off about him, so I'll come. So she comes to the door the next morning. Bonnie won't answer the door, and then Randy shows up, the handyman, and he has the key to all the units, and she's like, please open, I gotta see if she's okay. So when they go in the unit, they find her dead. And like not only dead, but tortured, blood everywhere, like a gruesome scene. So she's now freaked out, and she's like, oh my God, could it have been either Randy? And she's like, no, it couldn't have been Randy. Or the guy she's been seeing, the hot doctor that no one knows anything about. And she's like, oh my God, could it have been the guy that helped me that night? And so her ex-boyfriend, Jake the cop, ends up being assigned to this case, and he comes and she not reunites with him, but she sees him and they talk. And she's so annoying. She fails to tell him about the guy Kevin, the bad date that's stalking her, that could have been this guy because Bonnie told him off. And it just goes from there. So she's really sad about it. A few months pass. She goes on another date. Sydney goes on another date from the dating app. She thinks this guy's great. She's having a wonderful time. She's so excited. They're getting along. They're having coffee, but then they're going to go have dinner. So Sydney has this, I forgot the name of it, but a health condition that when she bleeds abnormally. It's more than other people bleed. So she gets like a nosebleed, and the guy looks at her and freaks out. He's like, oh my God, look at your shirt. So she's bleeding, and it's not a normal bleed. So she has to, clean up a lot and take care of it, but he doesn't know this. So the guy like faints, and he's like a little sissy girl, and he faints. So the doctor that she met and he helped her with the attack happens to be in the same restaurant, and he runs over and helps with the fainting and all this stuff. So once the guy comes to, he's like, oh, let's take a rain check. I'll message you on the app. Obviously, she never hears from him again, and he leaves. So he ditches her, and there goes her date. Then the medical doctor's there. The guy that in her head, she's already had the thought, the guy that Bonnie was seeing that might have killed her was a doctor, and maybe that was him that I saw out there. So now she knows he's a doctor, and she still doesn't take it seriously that might be the same guy, which drives me crazy. So she connects with the doctor. They go to dinner. The guy's like, you're better off. That guy's a sissy. And they have a great time. And she starts dating this mystery doctor named Tom. He told her his name was Tom something that ends up being a lie. And she finds that out later. But his name is Tom. And Tom is the same guy. So this story goes back and forth between childhood and today and the two timelines. And it does go into the fact that Tom is the same Tom from before, and they start talking about him when he's younger. Tom has a best friend named Slug. Then Tom has another friend that he's known forever. Her name is Daisy. He's been in love with her since forever. Daisy has a best friend named Allison. So all four of them go to the same high school, and Tom apparently is really cute. Everyone likes him, but I guess he was dorky when he was little, and his only friend he could make was this guy Slug that he's like gross and lanky and tall and has pimples, and no one likes him. And he's into ants and he eats bugs, and he's like one of those. So Daisy likes Tom and Tom likes Daisy. But Daisy's friend Allison doesn't like Tom and really doesn't like Slug because he's gross. But Slug is in love with Allison. So they have this dynamic. And throughout the story, Tom is enamored, or he's like really into anatomy class. Like he likes to take apart frogs or whatever animals are in there. He really likes like watching things bleed and cut them up, and he has that. So he has self-reflection, and he thinks, wow, there's something wrong with me. But it doesn't go as far as like him ever hurting anyone. He just has like these intrusive thoughts, and he enjoys like if your artery in your neck is like pumping, he thinks that's cool, and he gets obsessed over it. So anyways, he's in love with Daisy. Daisy starts giving him a chance. He starts walking her home. Everything's going great. And then there was a girl that went missing, and her body appears, and her name was, what was her name? Brandy. But Brandy was in love with Tom, and she ends up kissing Tom, and Tom tutored her, and I guess Daisy saw or heard about it, and she got jealous. She ends up killing Brandy, but no one knows this. And so they think it's Tom because Tom ended up kissing her that Allison saw, and then he was the one that tutored her. So it just all unfolds from before and then now. So ends up, Tom has an alcoholic father as well, and he beats his mother. And so one day he comes home and the father's being more than a prick while the mom's gone, and he ends up killing his father. But that was kind of deserved. To me, that wasn't like a crazy thing because the father was super abusive. But then he calls his friend Slug to help him to get rid of the body. And he does. And Slug does it with ease. And then Tom in his head is like, how does Slug know so much about killing someone, what to do, what the right path, where to go? He had all the moves done. But when they're putting the body in the trunk, Allison's walking her dog, which is Daisy's friend, and she says hi. And so Tom's like, well, she probably didn't even, know anything about it or think anything. And then Slug is like, no, she's a problem. Like she saw. And so the next day, Allison turned up dead or missing and eventually turned up dead. And so in Tom's head, Slug is the killer, um, because he said she was a problem. And so he ends up meeting Daisy and finds Slug's body on the floor, and Daisy killed Slug, his friend. And so there he puts the pieces together, and the person that killed both Brandy and Slug is Daisy. So the girl he's in love with is a freaking serial killer, and he's like, all his world falls apart. He's like, I can't marry her, I can't have kids with her, like this is not going to be my life, and his heart's broken. And he's like, so he just goes along with what she wants, but he's like, I can never be with her ever. So they grow up, and then fast forward to today with Sydney going on these bad dates, meeting the doctor, which ends up to be Tom. So at this point, Slug, his friend, is dead. And he says Daisy is dead, that his one true high school love is dead, but she's not dead. And Daisy ends up being Sydney's friend Gretchen. She changes her name to Gretchen. And so that's Sydney's friend. So it's a really cool twist of a story. And you don't know what's going on till the end. And I thought the whole time that Randy, the handyman, was really Slug. I don't know why I thought that. Like maybe he didn't actually die, but it wasn't. And it ended up being Daisy, now Gretchen, that is the culprit of all these killings. But it's a really good story. She keeps dating Tom, the doctor, because he's like, she's really attracted to him. She doesn't want to believe any of these things, even though it's so clear. But one day she's at his house and she finds some evidence, and then she really freaks out and calls the cops when she leaves. And they investigate him, but he has an ironclad alibi, so he couldn't have killed her, because every time Daisy would kill one of Tom's girlfriends, she did it when he was in surgery or at work, so they could never pin it on him, because she did all this out of protection of Tom and jealousy of the girls that Tom was with. And so it ends up that one day she's in her friend Gretchen and Randy's apartment. Randy asks Gretchen to marry him. She says yes. And she finds the hairs of all the girls that he's killed in the toilet when she goes to the bathroom. And then Gretchen already puts something in their wine. So they're both Randy and Sydney are passing out because of that. And Tom comes running because they met at the street, and Tom freaks out. And I thought, again, Randy was Slug and that's why he freaked out, but it was because Gretchen's really Daisy. So he comes and knocks on the door furiously and makes her open the door. And so Sydney hears all this conversation between Gretchen or Daisy and Tom. And so Tom makes a deal with Daisy. If you don't, because she wanted to kill Sydney, she killed the boyfriend Randy right in front of them. And Tom said, if you don't touch her and you don't ever kill anyone again, like, I'll leave with you. Because she's like, you need to leave with me. I can't live without you. I tried, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no one else dies. And that's the deal. And she said, okay, well, only if they don't deserve it. And Tom said yes, which in Sydney's head, while she's half drugged up on the floor, she's like, this guy's a psychopath. And it's so funny because I feel like Tom, well, I'll say this after. So they leave and they spare Sydney's life and they're never caught. So Daisy and Tom are free and they're together somewhere and they're never caught. Fast forward Sydney ends up with her ex-boyfriend, Jake the cop. They get back together, and Jake says, I realized where I messed up and I want to try it again. So they end up together. But I was sad because I'm like, oh my God, I was rooting for Tom because Tom had these intrusive thoughts and he had these like ideas about blood and death, but he never acted on it. He was like a good guy. And he never ended up with Daisy because he's like a genuinely good person. He just has like this thing about him. And so it made me sad to see him run off with Daisy at the end because Daisy was an awful human being, a monster, and she would just kill people. And he's ending up with her, and that really made me upset. I didn't like that. It made for a good story, but I feel for Tom. I wanted Tom to end up with Sydney because I feel like they really had a nice connection and he was a good guy. And so Sydney comes home one day, she's looking through her mail and she finds an anonymous letter and it's from Tom. And he's like, you don't have to worry about Kevin anymore. So Daisy and Tom went and they killed Kevin, the freaky bad date guy that was stalking her. And again, mixed feelings. I'm like, well, that's not good. That wasn't a good deed. He doesn't deserve to die because he was so weird and stalking her. He deserved to go to jail, but they killed him. So that was interesting. So yeah, I really loved the book. It was such a good read. Um, I don't like that Tom ended up with Daisy. I feel like Daisy was just like she was like crazy. And what are they gonna do? Like have kids? That's crazy. So yeah, I really I suggest you read the book. Well, obviously if you're reading this, if you're hearing this, this is full of spoilers, but it was really good. I loved it. It was a quick read. If you're on the beach somewhere or you want to do something that day, it's a quick read. Some of my favorite quotes from the book is right before she goes to Bonnie's house. She's like, so right now I'm drinking some pre-coffee coffee. Have you ever had coffee before a coffee date, or you're going to meet someone for coffee, or you're going to go somewhere and you have like a pre-coffee? I thought that was funny. And then another quote, a Diet Coke? That seems boring. Get a real drink. That was Kevin on the bad date because she didn't want to have drinks with him. And another one, great. Now I'm a flower murderer. So apparently Tom would walk Daisy home when they were in high school and he picked her a daisy from a plant or whatever. And she didn't like that because she's like, once you pick it, it stops living and it's going to die. And so you're a flower killer. So it's interesting because she's an actual killer and she doesn't appreciate when people pick flowers and kill the flower. So that was funny. Um, yeah, it was a good book. So that's my review. I hope you enjoyed it and happy reading. See you next time.